a woman broke her anonymity and shared her story with me without me even asking. And that's why I'm here today.
Welcome to the Recovery Valve Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Kennedy. Today's episode is brought to you by Augusta Lawn and Turf, carpet cleaning pros of Augusta, Coleman Construction, and a special thank you to all of our other supporters of the Recovery Valve Podcast. Hey, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on this podcast today, Kat.
Totally.
Thank
you so much for having me.
We're best friends.
We are best friends.
We haven't done karate in the garage yet.
We're about to.
But we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I met you through TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was TikTok.
Yeah.
You have this massive following on TikTok. I think it's 1.3 billion people that follow you.
No. I wish.
You're super popular on the social media, though.
Yeah.
You are.
I'm not. I mean, I would say I have my bigger following is on Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're good at it. You're putting stuff up. I mean, you came in the studio earlier and you were recording. I'm like, oh, I need to remember to do stuff like that. But I'm just a little bit older than you. And so my mind doesn't work like that.
Sure.
But you do a great job of it.
Thank you.
And so I'm so glad.
I have a team that helps me too. So yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So the reason I wanted to have you on this podcast is, one, I wanted the world to hear your story. Because of the content you put up, I know that you're very strong in your recovery. And I want to hear all about your past, but I want to hear about the success in what you're doing these days. So lead us through that conversation. What was your drug of choice? What was your addiction?
Yeah.
How long did you deal with it?
Drug of choice is such a funny because I didn't have a choice. But I grew up in a really good home and I had two parents. I have one older brother, grew up in Denver, Colorado, or like a suburb.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember some of my earliest memories just feeling different, not being okay in my own skin, not really feeling like I belonged anywhere, right?
Did that start like as a preteen?
Yeah. I remember because too, I was like in gifted and talented programs.
Mm-hmm.
I was also an athlete, which I see today are like, these are benefits, right? Like these are assets. But for me, I like didn't ever have a group that I like clicked with, right? I was always kind of on the perimeter. And my parents are amazing. They did the best they could, but they both grew up in like military homes where you don't really talk about feelings.
Yeah.
And as addicts, alcoholics, we're so sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
We want to like, I'm just, anything like a paper cut could be trauma to me.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah. And so I just remember feeling kind of unseen, unheard as a little girl, really sad, like I know that my parents provided me a great childhood, but I didn't know that this was alcoholism, right? I really, truly believed that alcoholism was, someone drinking under a bridge out of a brown bag. I had no idea.
So this is almost like kind of proof, like you were born with the disease,
totally.
but it hadn't uncovered itself yet.
Yeah, and it's genetic on both sides.
Okay. Mom and dad?
Yeah. Mom and dad are not, but their parents were very much.
Gotcha.
So, when I found alcohol at like the age of 12 and 13, really I started like sneaking it out of my parents' fridge. And, my mom had that Franzia box wine. So you could not.
Bro.
Yeah, right.
That's that good.
Yeah.
I would take the bag out of the box and cut the corner just to get the last few drops out of it.
Okay. Wow.
I know it. I didn't know that was, it was called Franzia.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't never pronounce it right.
Yeah, I know. But it was so easy to steal. Mm-hmm. Right. And then I started going to my friends' houses.
The spigot on it. Remember, like a
I know.
push spigot.
I know. Yeah.
That's so funny.
But like the first time I actually like remembered the effects of being drunk, I was at my best friend's house and her older brother was having a keg party. He was in high school. We were younger. I had a crazy crush on her older brother. We got to, he was like, I'm only letting you guys come as long as you promise to stay in her room. And we're like, okay, whatever. And there was like 5 of us.
That's not going to happen.
I know. No. So he starts bringing up like the red Solo cups, right? And immediately I'm not drinking like my fellows, like I'm like, give me more. Like I want more.
These are mixed drinks?
This is beer, keg beer.
Ooh,
I know.
That's a hard one. That's a hard first drunk.
Yeah. Well, here's the great part is we did not stay in her room. We all like migrated down like little rats and, started hanging out with the upperclassmen. I ended up like kissing her brother that night, which was amazing because now he was like this. I mean, we all have our friend's older brother, most of us, that is like so cute that we like dream about, we go to her house to have sleepovers. Yeah, she's great. But like, if we can get like a peek of her brother, that's the best part. Right. So I was, I was like 13, but, man, the next morning, like the girls are like puking and coming to and just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. I'm never drinking again. That was the worst night. Oh, what terrible decisions we made. And I'm like,
I've said those sentences before.
Right.
But you feel better after you have the first drink later on that day.
I was like, hold on a second. That was the best night of my life. Like, is there still alcohol in the house? What are we doing? Like, how many more hours until your parents get home? I know that we can probably get a little bit more out of that keg.
Yeah. So you're ready to go.
Oh, for sure. Didn't care about the consequences. I had really struggled with feeling okay in my own skin. And so that night, it was like I had needed a drink for the past 13 years, since I was 5 years old, I can remember not feeling okay in my own skin. Where has this been? What do you think that
was? Like when you think back to that, do you think just girls deal with that more than guys do? What do you think that? Because I remember having that feeling too. Like I wanted to hang out with an older crowd.
Yeah.
And it was like a way to fit in.
Yeah.
Because I felt like on the outside too sometimes. But your past is different than mine. So I just didn't know if you thought that was like more of a girl feeling or a guy feeling, or does that make sense?
I think it's pretty indicative of alcoholism. I think we all struggle with wanting to fit in. That's a human condition.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, alcoholism is this constant, like quiet voice saying like, you're never going to be okay. Like things aren't okay. Like you have to escape from this reality. You don't belong here. Like I didn't even think I belonged in my own family. I really didn't. And so having a coping mechanism like alcohol that allowed me to feel okay in my own skin was like, oh my goodness, like I've arrived.
Yeah, it's your first outlet that made you feel normal.
Yeah. And then, like wild that our literature talks about, these things that Bill Wilson really experienced in 1939 are relevant in, 2025 and like how I can still read those things. And I identify so much, just like feeling like somebody had put an oxygen mask over me when I had that first like true feeling of like the effects of alcohol and was like finally okay in my own skin. It was like somebody had taken my black and white world and put it into color. And I immediately I didn't drink like my fellows from day one. I was like, where can I get more? I don't care if you're coming or if I'm by myself, like how can I not feel me?
Right.
So the things that I need to do to numb out and to, escape my reality, I will do that at any length. And it progressed. I can have a spiritual experience with drugs, alcohol, a man, whatever I need to do to not feel me. And so in high school, I got pretty into cheerleading and was the varsity captain from freshman year to senior year. It was my life.
So you stayed in Colorado, graduated from Colorado. Okay.
Yep. And I was always an athlete, super involved in sports, but, had this like, you're not a jock, you're, not like I was in Future Business Leaders of America, FBLA.
FBLA. We had FBLA. We also, where I was at in South Carolina, we had FFA, which is Future Farmers of America.
No.
We're that redneck. But I love FFA. I did it.
Is that when you like make a pig or something?
I didn't never make a pig, but if you went to the monthly meetings, you could go on the monthly field trips they would have, like to the fair or roller skating and things like that. So give you these times with girls and,
You were an FFA for the girls? What kind of girls are in FFA?
I drank a lot.
Okay. Okay. All right.
They're great. They were great friends, but it was an outlet. How about that? We had FBLA
there's
too.
no judgment. There's no
there's
judgment. I know there's not. I'm just, I'm genuinely curious.
Well,
you know?
I mean, in this small town I grew up in, I mean, it's primarily farmers. And so it made sense to have FFA there, but it's just, I wasn't intended to stay there. So I did that for the wrong reasons.
Sure.
So we'll just leave that there.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead.
Well,
FBLA.
so FBLA, DECA, I was even in,
What's DECA?
DECA is,
Never heard of that one.
gosh,
Development?
what does it stand for? We'll have to figure out what that stands for. It's like a business thing. And then I was in speech and debate. Also, I love to weightlift. Like from the minute my brother was 4 years older, he like held some weightlifting records at high school. Some of my earliest memories are my mom on her exercise bike in the basement smoking a cigarette.
Really?
Yeah. And she would die if she heard that. But
she's going to hear it.
I know.
I'm going to get her email address and send her that clip.
She taught me so much about like fitness and like was such an incredible example. She took me backpacking when I was like 6 years old, and
well, that's cool.
She's fun. She taught me a lot about, staying fit, and it's a habit. My dad too. My dad still lifts weights to this day.
Really?
So I love
like
being
CrossFit working out or just strictly,
just like working out, just like being active.
Yeah.
We would always, like we didn't have fences in my neighborhood. So we all had this huge like green belt, and we would meet in the summertime, like at like 6 o'clock, and we played hide and go seek for hours, and we'd hide in trees. And I mean, my childhood was pretty good. It's so different now.
No computers.
I did love Nintendo though. I played the crap out of Nintendo.
Yeah, I had Nintendo.
Did you have like the old school where you had to like blow in it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You Contra, of course, Super Mario. Those were my games. Duck Hunt, and
Mortal Kombat.
When you put the blood code in. And Ninja Turtles.
Yes.
Those are my favorites.
Those are the classics.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still have my Nintendo.
Does it work?
Yeah.
They have them now where it's like a USB or whatever, and it's got like 1 million games on it.
Yeah.
So I need to get one of those.
Yeah. I don't think it would be the same. I've been playing my nephew's Mario Kart, and they're like, Auntie, how are you so good? I'm like, don't worry about it.
They call you Auntie?
Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Deadlifting Auntie.
Yes. So I always in high school loved like being active, but I had this like thing where, and I do like to have fun, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm the party girl. I'm the fun girl. Even in sobriety, like, they're like, do you want to go skydiving? I'm like, run it. Let's go. Like you asked me out here. I was like, done. Like I'm like spontaneous.
And thank you so much for doing that. Like
of course.
Coming from California to Texas just to hang out with little old me.
I know.
To do this podcast. I mean, I'm grateful.
Me too.
Because you could be doing so many other things with your life right now.
But I'm blessed. And I can't ever forget, like a woman broke her anonymity and shared her story with me without me even asking. And that's why I'm here today. Like I'm sober today because a woman at my gym, and we can talk about that, but she shared her story and just knew that I was hurting and could see that I was broken. And without me even asking, said, hey, if ever you want to talk about sobriety, I've got 20 years, so 25 years.
Planted the seed.
Yeah. And that's so awesome. When I knew, like when I wanted help, I knew exactly where to go. And that's, my social media platform. Like I talk about it openly. I talk about how real it is. Like I've, been a businesswoman, and doing lines of cocaine in the office is normal, and it was for me.
Mm-hmm. And you sit on my desk too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like just not really talked about that much. So I would party on the weekends, and my cheerleading coach was incredibly, traditional. And she said, we don't do this for the skirt. Like we're athletes. If I hear about you at a party with alcohol, you're immediately cut from the team.
This is still in high school.
Yeah. Okay. And I would just jeopardize it. I would be, cops would be busting the parties. I was like, oh my gosh, I hope my coach doesn't find out, and do it again the next weekend. Right. And so, I was just going, and my parents were like noticing, more and more. I mean, I was just getting obliterated, and, we didn't really talk about it. They would just like try to ground me, and I'd sneak out.
You feel like they would know, but just didn't make it like a big deal.
Yeah.
But knew it could be a big deal.
Yeah.
My parents were about the same.
Yeah.
They had to know.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was like, I was pretty uncontrollable, you know? And the more that they tried to helicopter me, the more I rebelled. And like, you know, I was the first of all our friends to get a tattoo. I got it on my 18th birthday. I didn't even, you know, like know what I wanted. I just knew that I wanted to rebel.
Tattoo.
Yeah. And I was like, just what do you think? And we picked it out together when I got there.
What did you get?
A sunshine on my lower back. It's classy, but I got it literally to upset my family.
I got one when I was 21. I got a sun on my arm.
No way.
Yep. And I had it covered 3 years ago. I mean, with this giant tattoo all up down my arm and on my chest. But yeah, I was just going to get the sun covered because I got it in 1999.
Okay.
And it turned, this is the bad thing about tattoos. I mean, it did. Over time, it went from like this round thing with the sun or whatever, and it just faded.
Well, because you got shredded. Your muscles just got bigger?
Yeah, right. There's nothing shredded about me but the cheese I'm eating.
You could have gone with it.
I tried, but that would be lying. I worked out for a brief period of time. I did CrossFit, and I loved it. But man, it hurt.
Yeah. I'm not a CrossFit girl.
Yeah, I'm not a CrossFit guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry I keep interrupting you. But
that's okay. That's all right. So I always was like really driven, really motivated. One thing among, you know, plenty other that my family taught me was like, if you want something, you got to earn it. And so I worked at a restaurant called Trail Dust Steakhouse. I think y'all guys have them here in Texas. If you came in with a tie, we would cut it off. And then
you almost got it right. You said y'all guys. It's just y'all.
Okay. I think y'all guys.
I've never heard of it. I'm not like from here, but I'm sure there's one here.
Yeah. There's a huge slide, and people would come in. They would wear ties, and we would, you know, have cowbells, cut the tie off, put the tie on the ceiling, and we buy them a huge drink. Because it's like, hey, we don't wear ties here, right? My name was Dallas. I had an alter ego. Anyways, I loved it. It was so fun. And I shamelessly flirted with one of the servers there who was like gorgeous and like Abercrombie model, like super fit, muscular, always like, you know, on time to work, like just there was something that drew me to him, and he had zero interest in me, none. And I was like, no, this isn't how it works, my friend. Like, and I just was so arrogant and straight up asked him, like, you must be gay if you're not interested in me. And he's like looked at me point blank, and he's like, I want nothing to do with you because you don't love Jesus. And I was like, I literally stopped in my tracks. I was like, what does Jesus have anything to do with this?
How old were you at this time?
18.
18.
And so he shared the gospel with me. One night we were rolling silverware. And even though I had gone to church with friends and my parents, you know, we went on Christmas and Easter, no one's ever told it to me like that. Or, I mean, I just had never heard it, right? And it's so funny how Jesus...
How did he break it down? What made it stick, you think, when he talked about that?
What really made it stick was that he made me perfectly the way that I am, and that he loves me just for who I am, that I don't have to be anyone different.
I love that.
Yeah. And that all I have to do is accept him. And, you know, like I went home that night, and he gave me some verses to read in the Bible. I had this old King James version. Yeah.
I dated a girl one time that went to church a lot, and I'm like, what do I need? Where do I start at?
Right.
And she's like, start in Proverbs and read King James. And that's like, you might as well just give me pig light. I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I had a serious heart transformation. I started to go to church with him. It was just a real small Bible church. I started to get involved in their young people's group. He and I started dating. We got engaged a year later on my 19th birthday. And my parents are like, whoa, this is too much. Like, this is fast. You know, they said, you guys can get engaged, but you have to wait to get married until she graduates. And we're like, okay. And that lasted a year. And we were like, we really would like to get married before. We want to start a life together. And so were you
drinking during the engagement?
No. Like when I had met Jesus, like I really truly changed. Like I just had a serious heart transformation.
That's great.
But that's what was really confusing, was that I think church was so helpful for me, and I had this relationship with Christ I hadn't had before, but I didn't have the tools that I think are necessary if you truly are alcoholic, right?
Yeah.
And there are certain things that I have to do in addition to Jesus. And, people are like, well, shouldn't Jesus be enough? And I'm like, yeah, but I truly believe that the book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12 steps, is straight from God. I believe it's divine. I believe that, that is a separate set of instructions that I have to use in addition to my Bible.
I totally agree with you on that, because when people get into the rooms, like when I came into the rooms, please don't Jesus juke me yet.
Yeah.
I couldn't take that and recovery at the same
Totally.
time. I wasn't shutting it down. But when I really dove into it, and after I started going to church, I understood that Bill W. is fantastic, but he didn't pull these out of thin air.
Right.
The 12 steps came from the Bible.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And
now the promises he probably did.
Yeah.
The promises.
Yeah.
But yeah, I truly believe that too.
Yeah. And so we were married. We got married when I was 20. We had alcohol at our wedding, but I had like a little bit of champagne, but I didn't drink. I was dry for about 4 years. And, this is another thing that was indicative of my alcoholism, is like, I have this like insatiable appetite for something. And even though I had a relationship with Jesus, I had this like thing in the dark that I hadn't fully addressed, right? Because, drinking is just a symptom of a lot of other things, right? You got to get down to the root causes. And I didn't. I just stopped.
Did you have like a traumatic thing that happened?
No, I think that I had this overall feeling that I never belonged. I felt never good enough. I think that whether my family meant to or not, I was somewhat neglected as a little girl. And, I didn't really work through it, right? Okay. And so I started running in college, like not okay miles, like not like 3 to 5 a day, like 7 to 10. And and I mean, that's, as I talk to more people about their addiction, it's fairly normal. And if you think about metaphorically running towards something or running away from something,
I can see that.
like especially when you're doing that many miles. And so I started doing like half marathons and then marathons. And, I just like, it's very normal. Like if I don't treat my alcoholism spiritually, which is way different than religiously, right, with Jesus, but spiritually, then I will treat it physically, I promise you, with trying to, outwork it, or emotionally, in a relationship. I will do whatever I can to like feed this thing that is just like absolutely insatiable until I get it right. And so I didn't really know that until after I got into the rooms, like, holy cow, I did so many things to try to manage my alcoholism, even dry. Yeah. And so when I graduated from college, I was super fit.
I bet so.
And
if you're running that kind of miles.
Right. And
I don't think I ran that many miles in a year.
Yeah. It was just an obsession.
And just to explain, like when you say dry, you just mean like you weren't drinking and you weren't working like the program at all.
Totally. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I didn't even know. I thought like, oh, I'm good. I have Jesus now. Yeah. And then I graduate, and I actually did really well in school because I was married. I actually really love being married. I was a Christian like youth counselor. We took kids backpacking, like had so much fun, but I still kind of had this like hidden corner in the back of my mind that was just like, this isn't real. This isn't going to stay here. Like you're an imposter. I never told anyone about that. Right. I was just like, that's, whatever. I'm just going to keep that quiet. And so I graduated and I got a really good job. And I was, I went to my first weekend trade show, and trade shows for adults are like spring break, that's open bar. There is not a lot of work that gets done. Most people are, pretty hammered in my experience. And I've worked in several industries, been to tons of trade shows. And it's just like, this is where adults go to party.
Yeah.
And so I got, I hadn't drank really. I remember we would actually have his family over sometimes and they would bring a bottle of wine. And I was so confused because I was like, what are we doing with one bottle of wine? Right? Like, what is everyone else going to drink?
Appetizer.
And then I stopped drinking entirely because I would have one glass and then the rest of the night, my mind would be absolutely monopolized by, are they going to finish that? Wait, if I took all the dishes to the sink, would they notice if I drank what was left? I mean, just crazy behavior in my mind. I didn't know that I have this allergy of the body that has this mental obsession that if I take any alcohol is now triggered.
Yeah.
And it's like on this, I mean, I'm literally cannot, it's just like when you have any other allergic reaction.
Just trying to find a way to
get more.
Scratch the itch.
Yes, totally. Yeah.
Totally get that.
And so, you know, and all of this is like in hindsight. I didn't understand any of this. I was so young. I was, 25 at the time. And I really just thought, like, oh, it's because I didn't really drink in college. Now I want to drink now. And so I started drinking while I was working and, entertaining clients. And then I started just like not being the woman that I was at home. And I ended up cheating on him. And like I would wake up in somebody else's bed and I was totally appalled because I did love this man.
Yeah.
He was amazing. And like we had such a cool marriage and I had no idea what was going on.
How long were you guys married for?
A little over 4 years.
Okay.
And
do you feel like it was because of the trade shows that dynamic, or that was just a part of it?
Then we like moved. Like I would go home and I would tell him, like this happened and I feel awful and I don't know what to do. And we'd go to counseling and we moved up to the mountains and hoping like, hey, she just needs like a fresh start. And it got worse up there. And it was just like, it was probably a good year of just dragging us through the mud. I ran off to Mexico with a dude. He picked me up from the airport. I mean, it was, I know. It was, I'm not proud of that woman.
No, and I don't want you to feel like you should be, I'm not saying be ashamed of that. I just didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a really confusing time for me because I really didn't understand what was going on. I didn't understand that abstinence like would have really helped a lot of this. I was unwilling to give it up. And I really just believed, okay, well, I got married too young. So I'm just going to let this thing, there was so much guilt and so much shame. And I really understand, when it talks about like our problems pile up and they become increasingly difficult to solve. And it was just one thing after another. And I would just have so much guilt and so much shame. And I had this man who loved me so much and was just so pure. And he didn't deserve any of that, And so I finally was just like, I need to be done with this. And I begged him for a divorce. And, he was like, nope, like this is.
No, because that's not how he was raised.
Yeah,
and
he's
he
like,
wanted
this
to
is
fight for his
forever.
marriage.
Exactly. And so I just made it very easy for him to divorce me.
Dang.
And I did a lot of things that, I certainly regret.
Would you say that was your deepest point in your addiction? And maybe did that, I hate using the term rock bottom, but like, maybe I'm trying to figure out how to word this. Did you allow that or make that a point where you would turn around? Or you just wanted him to end the marriage so that... That's a loaded question, I guess.
Yeah. I think I didn't know how to deal with the guilt and the shame.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted a fresh start. And then, to be honest, I kind of started to lose respect for him because I was doing so many like atrocious things. I was like, like a man that has respect for himself wouldn't stay with somebody like me.
Yeah. I get that.
So we ended the marriage and then really I just went unhinged, right? I had nobody holding me back. There was always still part of me that's like, hey, I'm married. I need to be, hey, I'm like a Christian woman. I need to. And then it was like, nope, like, you know what? I like almost rebelled against God because I felt like I had done all these things. I felt like I got baptized when I was 18. I gave my life to Christ. Where are you? How did this happen? I thought you were supposed to fix me. And so it was then about 7 years of just, that's when I really started getting into drugs. I had never tried cocaine until after.
After the divorce?
Yeah. I mean, that's not entirely true. I was doing it like during our separation, and was really like, all right, God, well, you weren't there for me when I had like this huge heart for you and I was living for you, and I still felt a separation. So maybe you'll find me now.
Yeah.
And,
zero responsibility for anything.
None. It was just,
because you sounded
delusion.
like you sound like the way that you felt when you were a younger female or woman, girl. And then, waiting on God to do something when you have to do some work too, I guess.
Totally. And I think that's like really the message that I want to express is that so many people, I go to a lot of church services and they're like, you can be healed. And some people do get healed, right? And they never have to worry about this again. But if you're the alcoholic that's described in that book, there is a set of instructions I must do on a regular basis, 24 hours at a time, to ensure that I do not drink again.
Yeah.
I do not think that makes me less saved. I don't think that takes away from Jesus. My personal experience is that I have to do those things in addition to have my relationship with Jesus, because having Jesus in my life wasn't enough in that regard.
Do you feel like, well, I'll say this for me. Like I said a minute ago, when I first got into the rooms and walked through, recovery at a treatment center, I didn't have that relationship.
Yeah.
And things got better when I worked the 12 steps that you're talking about. But things after I had that relationship as I understood him best.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't absorb all of that.
Right.
Like I had to start somewhere with him. But things got so much better after that relationship started. Like things were great in recovery.
Yeah.
But it was like that second year, whenever I started like really attending church and then accepting Christ as my higher power, that's when life kind of just went. And then I've never been baptized. I decided to get baptized as an adult. And it was like
totally.
So I mean, I think people need to hear that, and it's not to be religious, like you said. It's kind of like a spiritual experience.
Totally.
So I think that's awesome.
Yeah. So I had the 7 years is messy, right? It's lots of relationships, lots of broken promises to myself. Hey, this is going to be different, and I started different careers, and I started doing bodybuilding, and I started just trying to do everything I could to change my outside, hoping that my inside will follow. And I'm
mixing it with cocaine.
Right. Cocaine, Adderall. I got super into Adderall. Xanax I loved, and MDMA, and I just started this journey that, I guess it was really my testimony, a big part of it. Yeah. And then in 2014, I was in Atlanta and had really just hit like an emotional bottom. I had been doing MDMA almost every day for
What's MDMA?
MDMA is Molly. But it's like the purest form.
Gotcha.
I dated a drug dealer, and so for my 30th birthday, he gave me like a Ziploc of it, and it was like my favorite. You just roll all the time. I was doing it before work, after work, during work. I was going to Vegas, flying from Atlanta to Vegas weekly, Atlanta to LA weekly.
What were you doing for work?
I was working for a nutraceutical company. Okay. And like selling supplements and, doing the whole thing. And I mean, we had an open bar there. There was pills, powder everywhere. I mean, when you get to that point in your addiction and you kind of take an inventory of the people that you've attracted around you, it's no wonder that I found myself in that kind of environment, and I truly believed, okay, I got to chill out. I need to go to the beach, Southern California. I'm going to go back into the corporate world. I'm going to work back in software. That's where I worked after the mountains. And I'm just going to chill out. No one's going to be able to find me. I'm going to have Saturday morning pancake breakfast with my brother and his kids. And, you know, I needed to have that experience because I got to California and within 24 hours, I was up at the bars. You know, I wrote myself, I still have it, a letter on the plane from Atlanta to Southern California when I was moving. And I said, it's going to be different this time. You know, I could have passed a lie detector test. Like I truly believed I'm going to start going back to church. I'm going to start taking care of myself. I'm going to start volunteering. I mean, if you would have given me a lie detector test at that very moment, I would have passed because I believed that it was going to be different. I just had no idea that I needed practical daily application of tools and a community to show me how to actually live sober.
So you were moving from Atlanta and going to California. What year was this?
2014.
2014.
Yeah.
And then is this the year you got sober?
I got sober 1 year later. So
in Cali.
Yeah. And you know, my family didn't really have a front row seat to what was going on. I was at the end of my addiction. But my brother and his wife got to see things real close. And, you know, one night my brother came over and he's like, you're canceled. Like, I don't want you around the kids. I don't want you over for Thanksgiving. This was in September. And I was really thinking like, there is just a big misunderstanding here, you know, but really I was somewhat relieved too, because it's exhausting to live this life and to wake up. You know, what would happen is I would wake up and I'd say, today's going to be different, you know? And because I did feel suicidal, I did feel pretty just broken spiritually. I was lonely. I was starting to alienate myself more and more. I had 2 dogs that I had from my marriage. They were my road dogs. They went everywhere with me. And, you know, if I didn't have them, I would have definitely killed myself.
What kind of dogs are they?
I had a little Jack Russell.
I had a Jack Russell.
Did you really?
Yeah. His name was Buddy.
Yeah. Her name was Bella. She was in my wedding. Like, I mean, she was my world. And then I had like a lab pit bull mix.
Okay.
And they both, when I was going through my running phase in college, they would run with me. I ran so much that my Jack Russell would hide under the bed when I got her leash out. Like, that's how crazy I was.
Yeah, I was thinking, say your dogs are probably cut.
Yeah, they were just like, we're good. They were like the chillest dogs ever. And I joked, is like, I ran all their miles out of them. Yeah.
Poor fella.
But, you know, they were like that was my relationship right there. And there's this dog park in San Clemente. I would go to it and I would just think like, I wonder if I just left them, like somebody here would be their parent, you know, so that I could go like handle it. Like I lived in this town. I still live there actually, but I would hear the train. And I was like, I could just throw myself in front of the train and have it be painless. Like it would just be over. And
I had those thoughts.
Yeah. And
it's tough.
It was, you know, there was a day when I was really close and I was like, took my dogs to the dog park just with the intent to leave them, and no one else was there the whole time.
That's a God thing.
Right. And so when my brother came to me and said, hey, sis, like, I think you need to figure out your life.
I've heard you mention your brother a couple times. You really care about him.
Yeah. You know, he's 4 years older. So it's like old enough where we weren't really that close. But now I would say we're closer than ever. Yeah. Sobriety helps. Yeah. He's somebody I really look up to. He's very successful. He's just super level-headed, never really had the issues that I had. And, you know, he was pivotal. Like it was because of him.
Sounds like he's just been a good leader in your life.
Yeah.
That's great.
And he has, it's just he and I, and he has 4 kids and his kids are the world to me, right? I haven't been blessed with my own children yet, but you know, I'm very close with my nieces and nephews. And so when he said no more, you know, it was like, all right, I guess, you know, I should probably get some help. And so I would still work out during my addiction, you know? And there was a woman at my gym who was just this beautiful light. She had 4 kids of her own. She was adopting 2 more from Africa. And she just was always positive and smiling and just something very attractive about her. And I would come in talking about how I hadn't slept in 3 days, I was doing cocaine in the parking lot, all the debauchery. And she would never judge. She
was
would
about to
just,
ask, she never judged you, did she?
No. She would just be like, if ever you want to talk about sobriety. And I was like, that's so weird. I do not. Like, I'm obviously crushing it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
Look
I'm
at
like,
this.
yeah.
Mom used to smoke and work on the treadmill.
Yeah.
I'm in here snorting lines and powerlifting.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, we got this.
But I'm so thankful that she shared with me her story, because when it was time for me to get help, that's who I went to.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an absolute stranger. And that's been really my experience with social media, is that I share this stuff and people are like, I can't believe I'm telling a complete stranger this. And I was like, because that I've been there. Yeah. I have no judgment. Like, it's way easier to talk to a stranger than somebody who actually knows you and, can come back with some judgment. But that was, she's such an incredible woman. And I asked her if she would meet me for lunch that day. She met me that day. And, I just told her, like, I'm so lonely. I'm so broken. I feel like my life is just this shallow shell and I don't really want to be here anymore. But I have these 2 dogs that I love more than anything. And I just can't bring myself to kill myself. And she sat across the table from me and she said, I have great news, that I have felt the way that you felt. And there is a solution. She's like, the not so great news is that it's a 12-step program,
Yeah.
Alcoholics Anonymous. I was like, nope,
not
doing it. No, I will go to an insane asylum. I will shave my head, strap me to a bed for an entire year.
Easy.
Sorry. Shaving your head is different than that.
Okay.
I mean, you like, I will Britney Spears it.
Okay, you're talking about, yeah.
Like, I'm not going to those weirdos. I don't belong there.
Mm-hmm.
And she like slowly started to get up and she was like, okay, honey, like, it sounds like you got it covered. Like, hey, just know that you keep doing what you're doing. You're going to keep getting what you're getting. And I was like, ugh, okay, fine. I'll do it. But I'm not going to do it forever. And what was
your wall? I mean, what was your guard? Like, I'm not going to do it forever. Just, you're going to get through like the first few steps and then call it quits?
No, I was not going to do the steps. Are you crazy? Because I wasn't an alcoholic. I didn't believe I was an alcoholic because I could stop drinking.
Yeah, because you were doing cocaine.
Right. But also, I believed that alcoholism had something to do with like how I was like, I can't possibly be an alcoholic because I've never got a DUI.
Yeah.
I don't drink around the clock. I still have a pretty good job. I've never missed a rent payment. I've never been arrested. I thought alcoholics were homeless.
Yeah. All that sounds good, but you want to throw yourself in front of a train.
Right.
There's that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was.
Can you say her name?
Yeah. Her name's Kathy.
Thank goodness for Kathy.
I know. So Kathy was, so pivotal. She kind of became my temporary sponsor. I went to a meeting that next morning, 6:30 a.m., which was literally 3 miles from my house. Like, God put me in a community where there is an AA club 3 miles from my house.
You can run to it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. My heart can't handle running anymore, but so the meeting was great because the topic is what's good about today. So you go around the room, you do identify as an alcoholic, and you say what you're grateful for. And I'm like, this is easy.
Was this the first time you ever introduced yourself as an alcoholic?
My ex-husband made me go to an AA meeting, and I would sit in the parking lot and drink. But I did go in one time, and I was like, this is
I did
weird.
that too, but I would just say, hey, I'm Eric. I wouldn't say, I'm Eric, I'm alcoholic.
I definitely struggled with admitting that I was an alcoholic, but I did say it that morning and just burst out into tears and started talking about how, just vomited all over the whole meeting.
Yeah.
I just didn't know any better. Yeah.
And you needed that outlet.
Yeah. And they just said, oh my gosh, we're so glad you're here. Keep coming back. And I was like, okay. And so the next morning I made it that one night without drinking, and I was still doing Adderall. which was prescribed. I even told my temporary sponsor that, but she was like, let's just focus on, the alcohol and like other substances right now. I was like, all right. So then I went back the next morning. They remembered my name. They were like so happy. And then I left and I actually felt better than when I went in there. Right. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
That is cool.
And then, so I started liking it so much, I would go back for night meetings. And I was like, this is so fun.
Without your sponsor telling you to do like 2 a day or anything?
Yeah,
okay.
Because I started to feel good and I started to be accepted and I started to feel like a part of, right? Yeah. And that, I haven't felt that my whole life. Before. Right.
We always wanted just to feel accepted or a part of.
Totally. She was like 20 years sober and she was really involved in church and was vocal about, hey, I really think you need to find a more like involved sponsor. I'm an AA girl all the way, but I'm kind of out of it. I'm like, she's a full-time nurse, has her own kids. Like she doesn't do meetings. She really serves a lot in the church. And she's like, but you need to find a sponsor. I'm just like, she got me like a recovery Bible. But she's like, you need to get a big book. You need to find a sponsor. And I was like, okay. But I loved the meetings so much that I was just like riding the like meeting wave. Right.
Yep.
And then,
so you hadn't really started any like step work yet?
No. And I really believed that I was going to do the steps by myself. I kind of was like, I wasn't totally sold on the alcoholism thing. I was like, the steps is cool. And like, you guys probably need them, but
not me.
I'm good. Yeah. Like, and even though I identified so much with what people talked about, I went to some meetings that a lot of those people didn't actually work the steps. Right. So it makes sense like how I was able to ride that wave for so long because I was in meetings where a lot of those people, that meeting is their like recovery. And
they're just checking a box.
Yeah.
Not doing the work.
And it's like, so I was like 60 days sober and I loved it. I was having so much fun. I like was they had like camping trips and I was loving it. I was riding the meeting wave, right? And I would just go in, I'd talk about what I did for my recovery that day and I was staying sober, right? And then I like 6 weeks into recovery, I dumped my pills. So that was a big deal for me. That was Halloween night. So my last drink was September 10th, 2015. And then 10/31. So yeah, like almost 2 months later, a little over 2 months later, I was like, all right, like I'm going to like really do this.
Your sobriety date's when?
11/1/2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. When's yours?
September 27th.
2015?
2010.
Oh, wow. Wow. Old timer over here.
I didn't have hair then, so I mean, it's not that long ago, but yeah, 14 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's amazing.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
I'm proud of me, but I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So yeah, I decided to dump the pills that night. I had really just been convicted about like, hey, if I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to do this thing, right? But I wasn't totally sold on the steps or the sponsor quite yet. And so then I met a boy and he came in to my morning meeting, right? And he was a Christian and professional golfer, really handsome. He had just gotten out of rehab. And we strike up a conversation after the meeting and he's like, can we go to breakfast? I was like, of course. And so we go to breakfast and he proposes to me 2 weeks later. We get married 1 week after that. And we like, yeah. And I have this like temporary sponsor who is like,
she's like, bro, you can't even date in the first year,
right.
But you're getting married?
She's like, I'm telling her about him and I bring him to church and she's like, you need to slow down. Like, this is like, she's like, I know I'm not your sponsor, but like one of the things is like, we want you to focus on yourself.
Yeah.
She's like, so just like take it slow. And I was like, of course. And then I went to her house the day after. He and I just went to the courthouse. I went to her house after and I was like, hey, so remember that guy? She's like, yeah. I was like, so we were thinking like it might be too good to be true because, he's just so perfect and all these things. And she's like, yeah. And I was like, well, he's married to me.
Oh, boy. Thanks for watching and listening to the Recovery About podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe and follow along on all of our social media platforms. A huge shout out to all of our sponsors. You can find a list of them in the show notes below or on the screen you're watching on our YouTube channel. We'll see you next week. Today's episode is brought to you by Bagwell Insurance, Tree Guys with Ties, Barrow Walden, Kendrick Pain and Body, Roof Savers, Game Changers, City of Refuge, Augusta Magazine, Burrow Elijah Attorney-at-Law, Communigraphics, The Nonprofit Desk, Corbin Jones State Farm, Paradise Turf, Sally Kohler Photography, Atlas Health and Wellness, Dr. Rhonda Milner, Kendra Neal Studio, Augusta Dream Center, Newsom Electric, New Spring Church, Candace Riddle Realty, Gold Mech, Norval Fixture and Equipment, S&S Supplies, Belinda Thompson, Rhett Walker. And a special thank you to all of our other supporters of the Recovery Valve podcast.